So, you have a nephew you don't care about. Well, do I have the get out of jail card for you? Skylanders was a game series that was popular throughout the 2010s, and it fundamentally changed how we sell plastic. But to the children who played the game, there was a magic to putting plastic onto a portal. So that begs the question, is necromancy legal? What is this? Crap. The taxes hit hard this year. What are these things? If they're not plastic, that means we were never bringing them back to life. We were always sending them to war, constantly, selling them off at Toys R Us for 10 years. Is that legal? That's at least 2 murders. The solution is clear. We can't break into these plastic shells to send them home. We need to find a different way. A humane way. A way that we could all send them back. But in order to do that... Sorry, buddy.
Just get a couple. Alright, there we go.
I hate you, whoever you are, right?
Hello there. I don't know what I'm not really gonna say much.
Yeah.
We're just going. We're getting there, boys. We're getting there.
Getting there.
Alright. There she blows. There she blows.
There she is.
There she is.
Here she is, the games galore.
Games galore.
The games galore. Games
Yeah.
galore.
Yeah, baby.
That's what we're talking about.
That's going.
What are you gonna get, bro?
Plastic.
There you're on.
And after a shopping spree, I am now the proud owner of a bunch of plastic. And a little bit more. I also decided to pick up a Wii U. This little beast of a console that failed is going to let me play every single Skylanders game all in one place. This is super important for different types of research. Along with that comes every single Skylanders game to go with it. In order to understand how Activision and Toys for Bob sent these toys back to life, I'm gonna need to commit a few sins.
Oh, that is. Alright, we're good. Yeah. So if you want
Try not to destroy the quality here.
Here he is.
Works. Hey, the figure survived.
Now that we've mutilated some plastic, we can now figure out how these figures work. This is an NFC chip. On this little device, a Skylander can hold a ton of data. According to the Activision support website, a Skylander will hold the following data: experience points and levels, nickname, the owner, gold, the quests completed, treasures, currently equipped hats, a stat boost, and the skill upgrades. The portal will also save to the Skylander every 30 seconds. This is the portal of power. We can send commands to control the portal. And after doing some research, I found a GitHub account from Michael Niepers. His Skylanders project has already successfully connected to the portal. Using this and some other great resources, I can now write my own functions that can control the portal. Each of these functions can control what the portal will do or say. And more specifically, over time, I want it to be able to control the portal during a game. So how do we get started? Well, the first thing we can do is send a ready command. The ready command consists of the letter R converted into hexadecimal. By sending this command into the portal, we just have to wait for a response. And once we have that, we know that the portal is ready to do pretty much what we want. In the same vein, we can send an activate command. Send an A, convert it to hexadecimal, and then send that command. These two commands combined basically turn the portal on. With that knowledge, however, we can now send a status command. The status command is built the same. You send an S, convert it to hexadecimal, send the command, but now we don't just get one response, we keep getting responses. This is perfect because hopefully this should have some data that's useful, and in fact, it does. These last 2 bytes serve as like a timer, and we can sort of just get rid of them. However, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th bytes of this response actually tell us what Skylander is on the portal. And if you add more, it'll go up in different increasing values. The same will happen if you take a Skylander off of the portal. When I put this first Skylander on the portal, it gets an index of 1. And when I put a second Skylander on the portal, you get an index of 2. And as this keeps increasing, we can actually keep track of up to 16 Skylanders on the same portal. And, I mean, we can barely fit like 4, so we should be fine. This is when I started to have some issues. When I added the code in, it turned out that my portal wasn't connecting correctly, and I often got wrong data. I deduced that it could have been the crappy portal connection that I bought from Games Galore, so I decided to maybe head back and buy another one. Well, alright, got a portal of power for 10 bucks. We're gonna see if this works. I'm mainly concerned about the disconnection, so if we just get a steady number. Perfect. Thank you, Game Shop. You saved me again. After this breakthrough, I found a program called Skyreader on GitHub. This program can read and write data to a Skylander, and while using the actual program sucks, it does give me the information to start building my query function. To do this, I borrowed the code from ready, activate, and status and started rebuilding it to include things like the character index, the blocks, and also include what part of the command I'm actually sending. I then set those bytes that I included, and that's pretty much the entire query function finished. But how do I actually use it? This is a representation of what the Skylander data actually looks like. Each of these different blocks holds some sort of important data that we need to find. But for our purposes, we're just going to look at one section of this. And we really want to find all of that out with a query function. Passing in the Skylander we want to use and which block we get will return another response with the data that we requested. This is super important because pretty much this is the entirety of what Skylanders is, reading and writing to a figure. This gets us halfway there. Going back to the Skyreader documentation, we know where the ID and the variant ID is. We just have to bit shift some stuff around and then we get the right value. I even wrote a small Unity program that when you hit a button will actually read a Skylander off of the portal. In this case, I put Tree Rex down. I click the button, and after a few seconds, I get my Skylander. Not that bad, actually. It was pretty fast as well. So now all we need to do is read through each and every block of a Skylander, and once we have all of that, we now have all of the data on a Skylander, right? Wrong. We don't get it. It just crashes every single time. Why does working code, when repeated, just not? Well, let's think about it. To get one block of data, it's going to take the computer about 2 seconds to read. So putting that together with every single block, it'll take 64 blocks times 2 seconds, meaning it'll take over 2 minutes to read an entire Skylander.
Is Donkey Kong really worth 2 minutes?
No, of course it doesn't. It makes no sense. Why would you ever want to wait 2 minutes for a Skylander? It barely takes 5 seconds for it to work in the actual game.
Am I a real programmer? Should I really be doing this? What's the difference of Gaussians? I'm not doing it!
Many months later.
I know what the answer is!
So, Unity's update function runs every single frame, and with that, we really want to just stop our code. But why would we ever want to do that? So hear me out. If we can slow down our code, maybe we can speed up the game. This might be possible because the portal is our main bottleneck. Meaning that if we can only use the portal when we need to, maybe we can improve performance massively. Let's go ahead and actually fix this. Inside of my update loop, I have this while loop that'll actually go ahead and read and write to the portal. The problem is that I zoinked this from Michael Nieper's code, and because his code wasn't meant to run in real time, this will just flat out freeze Unity. So the solution is to just get rid of it. So we're going to just delete everything and restart the project, making sure to rewrite everything to not work and update every frame. And by using quarantines, we can actually write all of our code to work outside of update, effectively meaning we get to tell it when to go. The good news is that all of the code I did write earlier gets to stay. It's really just ripping out all of the stolen stuff and rewriting it. Let's get rid of the old code and rewrite it. This is my updated function. Altogether, it'll do the exact same thing as the last code, but just much faster. At first, I'm going to input what character we are reading and the player that it's attached to. We then also tell the function what block of data in the list that it's actually going to read. This will then get that block. Once we do that, we will actually use our old query function and actually get that data. We then get that data back from the portal. Now there's different sections of what we want to do with that code now. At first, we're going to use the exact same thing we used for that loop. And what we can do is we can then actually just wait. We can tell the code to just stop using a yield function. Once we're done, we can just call the function again. This is just like that while loop. But when we actually get the data we want back, we're going to want to copy that into the player controller. Then we find out if we have any more commands that we need to read and run those commands. And if we don't have any other thing else to do, we'll just stop the code. Applying this same technique to the rest of the project took us from crashes to hundreds of frames per second. So with that, let's give this project some love. I started by recreating the entire UI of Swap Force, just so that way I had some cool little bits to throw in there when we load in a Skylander. I also made it so that way it could be flipped around, so that way I could have up to 4 players in my new game. After piecing together my UI in Unity, I decided to start building up the next section. I wanted to be able to transition into a vortex, just like in the games, and be able to show the character off. And that way I can then only show the characters that are actually being played with. I also made a main menu. Now it's time to re-implement the actual Skylander part of the game. Now we get to answer the age-old question, what is inside of a Skylander? The new data that we got in a fraction of a second is the exact same as before, but now we should be able to read the rest of the data much faster. As I started to look through the new data, it turns out that some of it is encrypted, which means we can't just read it, we have to modify it in some way. Now, it turns out that Skyreader already does this. So I decided to steal that script, convert it to C#, and start to figure out where other data was. Now that we have an entire Skylander decoded, we can talk about how the data is structured. We're going to use hex for this example, and there are 3 sections inside of our data that we want to look at. This first section is actually the things we've been looking at before, so we can sort of just throw it away. The next 2 sections is where things get interesting. They contain all of the other information that we wanted to get earlier. But if you have a keen eye, you may notice that some of that data is the same, and some of it is different. That is because they are copies of each other. But more specifically, they are a backup. Skylanders will write to one section during one game, and the next time you use the Skylander, it'll use the other section. So if something bad happens to one of these sections, or if it gets corrupted, or something bad, then you won't lose all of your progress. You only lose one play session. This is actually a vital part of the technology, and knowing that they did it this way means that there's a high probability of everyday corruption with these NFC tags.
This is really awesome, because now we get to actually see all of the data that I've been talking about for the past 16 minutes.
To start this finale of data, let's look at the XP and coins. Depending on which area you're looking at, the position changes, but otherwise it's very simple to calculate these 2 values correctly. And overall, many of these values are actually very simple to find. Next, we need to be able to find the nicknames. Nicknames are quite important because they help you personalize a Skylander, but it also means that we have access to strings in the data. For this, it's actually not that bad. You actually have 2 blocks of data, and you're going to convert them into letters, and then you just ship them off as the nickname. That's it. Now we get to look at upgrades. Upgrades are the most important part of Skylanders, so we got to get this right. We're going to take a look at this in binary. And the cool thing about this is that it's actually really simple how they keep track of upgrades in this game. They just count, which makes sense. And the first 4 upgrades are actually just that. 4 bytes, and they can count in any order you want, because you can buy them in any order. And then, when you buy all 4 of them, it's actually going to change a different bit. Once you have that, it's actually going to give you the option to choose a path, and it's going to change another bit depending on what you choose. From there, it's just like before. Different bits are different upgrades, and you can buy them in any order. And of course, you got your soul gem at the end.
Alright, it's the final test. Alright, let's do it. Alright, pretty decent. Alright, so I've got a bunch of controllers, so I'm going to just join with all of them. Alright, so I got 4 people joined, so I need to be able to put 4 Skylanders on the portal. So player 1 should be Zook. Maybe. Hopefully. One day. Alright, another one. Player 2, player 3, and player 4. Alright, so we got a bunch of Skylanders on the portal now. And boom. We got all 4 of them. So, when I go ahead and I move this out of the way. Alright, so we got all 4, which means each different player has different things. So if I remove Drill Sergeant, I should be able to replace him with someone else and not mess anyone else up. Hopefully. Heck yeah. So, this is good. This is good. Yes. And they all have their correct coin totals from before. And it just kind of shows their XP as like values of 1,000. So they Spyro has 3,300 XP, 2,000 XP, 1,000 XP, etc. So I don't know what their levels are yet, but pretty close. And that's it. All I need to do is make a game with it. It's been 6 months. So what I'm thinking is that because I stole so much of this code, I'm pretty much just gonna upload all of it. I might rip out some of like the music, but I'll just throw all of my code up on GitHub and Itch. It just makes sense. And plus, it means that you get to yell at me for the things I did wrong. You get to fix my code for me. I'm gonna try and do more of this in the future, but I need to take a break from Skylanders and just work on something else. Hopefully, won't be too long. I'm really looking at like a week of like a break and then get right back on track. I mean, honestly, I haven't felt this amazing in 6 months.